Good afternoon, students, and welcome to the second session of MMPA 002 Human Resource Development. Yesterday, we had a discussion regarding the conceptual framework of human resource development, where we have understood that human resource development is all about developing the competences among the people, developing commitment of the people, and developing a set of culture, organization's culture, which can drive the organization. And also we have discussed how this human resource development as a system need to be synchronized through various systems and subsystems to define the entire process of human resource development. So in continuation with that, let us today analyze the different systems of human resource development as a concept that we need to focus on for the implementation of HRD in organizations. So, students, we can understand that human resource development is all about the people dimensions of the organization, where we have understood that human beings are not to be treated as resources, rather, human beings are to be treated as the assets, where the focus of the organizations should be on the investment aspects of the people, where a lot of investments are required in terms of grooming them up, in terms of training them, providing developmental approaches, mentoring, coaching, counseling concepts like. So the basic reason is that whenever we do talk of these individuals, human beings at the organizations, actually the productivity of the individuals is a very complex phenomenon, where we say that the productivity depends on the potentials of the individual employees, and the potentials of the individual employees are a sub factor of their intelligence quotient, IQ, their emotional quotient, their social quotient, and their cultural quotient. Where we talk of the performance quotient of the individuals are the sum of these factors. So whenever we are dealing with individuals, we cannot undermine that the individuals are the social human beings. Individuals are the psychological beings. Right? So they do have their own beliefs. They do have their own set of thought processes. They do have their own set of motivational aspects, or maybe they do have their own expectations at the place of work. So whenever we are dealing with human resources, we cannot simply take human resources as like other resources. Human beings are to be dealt in a different way altogether. The concept is the process of humanization, humanism at the place of work, where you have to treat all individuals as individual first. What I mean to say is that you need to take their psychological, sociological aspects first, then you can think of the other organizational aspect. So that is how we'll be able to manage these human resources to a large extent in an effective and efficient way, where they can really contribute to the productivity of the organization. So having this concept, whenever we do talk of this HRD as a system, HRD overall with a holistic approach, it's a very dynamic concept, right? So here we are not only focusing on the individual aspects of the employees, but at the same time we are focusing on the organizational aspects, because the base concept of developing competences, commitment, and culture. So competences are related to individuals, so we need to focus on individual development. That's what is a primary aspect. But at the same time, commitment of the individuals is a combination of both individual level of factors and the organizational level of factors. So commitment cannot be driven by the individuals only. So some of the organizational factors are also responsible for that. And if we do talk of the culture of the organization, many such aspects of the organization are to be taken into consideration. So a holistic approach, a dynamic approach should be there to make this human resource development effective in the organization. And broadly, whenever we do talk of this human resource development, these are the main five such important aspects of the human resource development that we need to take into consideration. The first thing is that it need to provide support to other systems of the organization. We need to develop a system of research and implementation of the outcomes as a gap, whatever we do find out, right? Management of human resources, developing the competences of various kinds we need to talk of, and catering to the process needs of the organization. And let us discuss these 5 points one by one to have a deeper insight into the concept of HRD. Now, whenever we do talk of this human resource development as a system, and the primary role, we say that it need to provide support to the organization's systems, other systems of the organization. We discussed that nowadays organizations do operate as an open system. Open system in a sense, most of the external factors, may it be political, social, technological, or economical, or whatever, environmental, whatever it may be, right? So most of these environmental factors do impact the organization, and organizations need to cope with those challenges, those pressures being imposed by these exogenous factors. At the same time, if these organizational strategies will not be supported by the relevant HR strategy, HRD strategy, can the organizations cope with those kind of exogenous factors? Probably it will be a very difficult aspect, and probably it will be an impossible thing. So always there is a debate whether organizational strategies will lead to HR strategies or HR strategies will lead to organizational strategies. Maybe the end of this debate is that both organizational strategies and HR strategies should go hand in hand, should go together. Because for each and every aspect of the organizational life cycle, I cannot have a single or a uniform HR strategy. It has to be differentiated from its embryonic phase to its growth phase to its maturity phase to its declining phase. So that is what we need to understand. And we need to develop some of the basic aspects of this concept, right? So strengthening the other systems of the organization requires an open approach. So what is required is that HRD should facilitate its executives, operating executives, right, to carry out all those functions so that the productivity of the organization can be achieved. So we say nowadays that each and every manager in an organization is a HR manager. Each and every manager in the bottom level of the organization, so as to say, we call them as the line managers, right? They are the HR managers because they are the people who do deal with the human resources at the bottom level of the organization. Right? So given an opportunity, if it will not strengthen those operating or executive level employees to manage the entire human resources of the organizations, it will be very difficult for us to manage all those people in the organization, right? So more or less the functions that you do see, right, is the responsibility, all those verticals we do talk of in the field of HR is the responsibility of those line managers. Right? It should be associated with the people only. And implementation of that becomes a responsibility of this line managers. Right? So whenever we do talk of providing this support system to each and everyone, let us extend all those measures related to the HRD to the bottom line of the organization, bottom line executives, operational executives. Second thing is that we need to consolidate our own strengths, existing strengths. Most of the time, right, of course, because of this pressure being created on the organization, which is related to these external factors, environmental factors. Most of the organizations, they nowadays, in a process of dynamism, adopt many such different kind of changes. And any such kind of change requires a change in the cultural aspects of the organization. But my dear students, you need to understand one thing, that culture of an organization is a very important aspect. It's a very important aspect. And you cannot think of revamping the culture of the organization. What is required is that if it is required, then this culture can be modified on a piecemeal basis, not with a revolutionary approach, but with an evolutionary approach. That's what we need to talk about. So each and every organization must have certain strengths of their own. What I need to understand is that I need to consolidate those strengths, like traditional organizations, but there is no such system at all. Even they operate with some of their strengths. What I need to understand is the strength of those kind of organizations, and I need to develop those aspects so that the organization can reach in its desired path. That is what I need to understand. That is what I need to implement, right? So HRD as a major system, as a basic system, needs to provide support to other aspects of the organization. Similarly, whenever we do talk of the culture of the organization, we need to focus on the system development and research. What is required is to find out the gap between the desired level of performances to the actual level of performances. And mostly, like whenever we do talk of dealing with people, as we say that whenever we talk of dealing with people do have their own problems, as we have discussed. People are social beings, people are psychological beings. So whenever I do talk of understanding the people, say for example, if I do have an employee whose performance rating was somewhere around 4.7, 4.8 in the previous performance appraisal period, but for some reason I observed that the performance of the individual has gone to 3.5 out of 5. What could be the factors responsible for the decreased performance level of the individuals? If the situation would have been 3 decades or 4 decades ago, I would have thought of providing him training to enhance his skill, because the entire aspect should have been consolidated with skill and the competencies of that particular person. But nowadays, if I do see, the performances of that particular person may be affected because of other personal problems. It can be possible. Say, few such common things that you can take into consideration. Right? Now, some of the employees who has taken a loan from a bank and is unable to pay back that loan, his debt is increasing day by day. Someone who has got a family problem, someone who has got some sort of issues with the senior manager, with the colleagues, could be the reasons. I don't know. If I do find out any such matter, right, which can be a factor of non-performance, it can be hundreds. What I need to understand is to find out those factors. Gone are the days when a generic approach would have worked. Nowadays, whenever we are dealing with problems of individual employees, we need to think of individualized solutions to that problem. That is what is required. So that is what the focus is on: research to identify the gap. We have come out with many such transformations in the existing practices, what we are going to discuss in some of our future classes, like the concept of counseling, the concept of coaching, mentoring. all of these are included in the process of enhancing the competencies of the employees, because we need to move to the root cause of non-performances. It cannot be a general solution. Similarly, whenever we do talk of this organizational dynamics, when we do talk of OD concepts, organizational development concepts, right? So, organizational development is all about having a synchronization among all such different aspects of the organization. So is it that all the systems of the organization are in synchronization with other systems? If not, then how to synchronize that? How to make a single process which will drive all the efforts of the employees in one direction? So that is the reason why we need to think of making or giving more emphasis on the research part. We need to identify the gap and we need to find out the appropriate solution to each and every problem. Here we need to understand that not all the problems are similar, not all the problems are generic. Here you need to have individualistic approach to deal with all such kind of problems. So the importance of system development and research is that in a HRD system. Next aspect is that I need to have synchronization in the management of human resources, where here we do talk of the administrative aspects of the human resources, but at the same time, we need to talk of the human resource system as a whole, which can really focus on the different aspects and the interlinkages that these aspects do have with one another. Maybe I'll tell you sometimes the basic functions of human resource development is like a cobweb structure, where each and every function is aligned with one another, each and every function is linked with one another, right? So how do I synchronize all those HR activities, HR verticals of the organization is what is required. Say we are talking of planning for the future needs. Previous class we had a discussion on that. So whenever I do have the future assessment of human resources, I am focusing on what sort of role they are going to play in my organization. So do I have a proper role description, role efficiency, right? So do I get all those desired manpower with the desired kind of roles, or I need to develop them? All of these are the questions that I do have whenever I'm thinking of the future human resources requirements. Do the labor market trend facilitates me to get the desired level of human resources with the desired skills and abilities? Maybe, may not be. But if not, what I need to do? I need to think of getting the best people available for that. Right? Where we to talk of first point is about job analysis, role analysis. We are talking of the selection or recruitment and selection, right? So whatever resources I do have, I need to think of making or getting the best people out of that. But the selection criteria have changed in between. No, earlier days, people used to focus on the efficiency dimensions of the individuals. But nowadays, they do see the efficacy dimensions of the individuals, effectiveness dimensions of the individuals. Where earlier days, people were selected on the basis of their knowledge and skill. Nowadays, people are selected on the basis of their attitude and skill. So there's a transformation that has been there because of the changing requirements of the organizations. Yeah. Whatever it may be, whatever people we do have, I need to ensure that I need to utilize those people in a proper way. Whatever human resources I do have, because organizations have realized that it's the human resources which can really bring a difference. The success or failure of the organization is completely based on the utilization of human resources in the organization. If the human resources are utilized properly, okay, organization can have its productivity. But if there would be wastages in terms of human resources, utilization of human resources will not be there in a proper way, then there may be problems. That is what we need to talk about. So to make the best possible utilization of human resources, I must ensure that there is a proper match between the role profile and the individual. So all the individuals do have their own strengths, weaknesses, all the individuals do have their own potentials. What I need to understand is that how to make the best possible utilization of those human resources, their potentials. That is what I need to understand. That is what I need to consider. Not only that, nowadays the biggest challenge that I do have is that human resources, as we say, are sometimes treated as volatile resources. Volatile resources is that I cannot stop people from moving to a good pasture of land. Means because of greater job opportunities, nowadays the turnover of the individuals are also huge. So my challenge is that, can I really retain them? Yesterday we were having a discussion on that. No? Retention of golden collar employees has become the most priority at the present time. Anyhow, I cannot afford to lose. I cannot afford to lose my employees. I have to retain them, whatever the strategy it may be. So retaining them, motivating them, integrating their efforts, all of those are things that I need to focus the pace of work. Assessing the individual's contribution, as we have understood that performance appraisals have been transforming themselves to newer approaches. Right? May it be potential appraisals, may it be performance management system, may it be performance prison pyramid or HR scorecard. So I need to make a real assessment of each and every individual's contribution towards the goal of the organization. Right? So those are the things that are to be taken into consideration. Planning for the growth of the people. This has been a mandate for the HR departments nowadays to look after the succession planning process of individuals. Succession planning is no more a choice, but has been a mandate for the HR department. Career planning, succession planning aspects of the organizations, right? Making or ensuring that people do have a good career in the organization, which will retain them on a longer run, which will enhance their productivity. All of these are the things that we need to take. Developing a healthy industrial relationship system. This is what a holistic approach that you need to take into consideration. Right? A healthy IR system requires active involvement of all the stakeholders of the organization. Like, as we understand, there may be employees or their organizations, like we are talking of the unions. There may be employers or their organizations, maybe talking of the employers associations, and government, appropriate government as a regulatory authority, right? Coordinates the activities between the employees and the employers, right? So employees and the government, and the linkage that has to be established to have a healthy industrial relationship system has to be supported by the relevant HR policies. Okay? So holistic growth of the organization is also a responsibility of this HR department. Job analysis, evaluation, organizational tax processes. So whenever I do talk of this management of human resources at the place of the organization, I need to have a synchronization of all of those aspects. There has to be proper synchronization, starting from, as we say, human resource management through its administrative functions takes care of the employees from the date they join the organization till the date they leave the organization. The entire process comes under the purview of HR. And what I want to say is that there has to be a synchronization among all of these processes. Then only these HRD systems can be effectively managed or utilized by the organization, right? We're talking of developing the competences of various kinds. So whenever we talk of these skills and competences is not confined to a particular thing. We are talking of these technical competences where I want all of my workers, all of my employees to, or even executives to be technically sound. So I need to provide them enough opportunities of training in their respective fields to enhance their skill, to enhance their knowledge. I do talk of managerial competences. So whenever we do talk of these managerial competences, we are not talking of developing managerial skills only. Many such different competences are to be taken into consideration, like we are talking of judgmental abilities of the people, decision making abilities of the people. We need to talk of the leadership abilities of the people. We need to talk of the interpersonal relationship abilities of the people. How do they carry out all those relationships, may it be superior, subordinate, may it be among the colleagues, whatever it may be. So competences at all levels are required. We're talking of process competences, like understanding the basic flow of work in the organization, understanding the basic system of the organization is what that is required. So holistic approach is required over here. I am a HR professional, so I cannot restrict myself to HR department. HR department also has linkages with other departments, may it be production, finance, or sales, whatever it may be. So understanding the basic process is important. Helping competences is all about making the other people to grow in their career in the organization. So you're talking of career development aspects, career planning, succession planning. How do you help each and every individual employee to grow in their career, to come out with their success in their career? That is what is the responsibility. And we do talk of coping competencies. It's of course nowadays with the increase in the complexities at the place of work, complexities of carrying out that particular job, may it be caused by the internal environment or external environment. But people do go through a very serious traumatic phase nowadays, where each and every individual working in the organization are passing through a phase of stress. Okay? So organizations nowadays, they are giving enough emphasis on work-life balance concepts, employee assistance programs, like making the organizations to be a happier place to work. So we are promoting kind of yoga, we are promoting kind of happy lifestyle at the place of work, so that people can overcome their stress and they can contribute their best. So competences at all of these levels are required to be there, right? And finally, we do talk of this process needs of the organization, where we say that this process is highly sensitive in a sense that it emphasizes on the values of the organization. Right? Say what the value that the employees will have from the place of work, like maybe having a happy or a healthy or a autonomous lifestyle, right? Or whenever we do talk of these people dimensions, whether the abilities of the people to cope with several aspects of the organization is there. That is what we need to understand. So if at all it is necessary, we say that there has to be a synchronization with the culture and the values. Of course, we do talk of the basic framework of values. We do talk of the process of humanism. But what is required is to understand the existing systems, and then we need to develop some of the interventions to cater to these process requirements. So diagnosing the problem is one of the important aspects, as we have said, right? Maybe many such methods are there. Action research method is one of the common such methods to understand the root cause of the problems, right? But beyond that, whenever we do come out with this outcomes of the diagnosis, you can think of these structural interventions, process interventions, or simple interventions. We can do. The first thing that we need to take into consideration is these structural interventions. Of course, gone are the days where we have witnessed many such changes in the structural aspects of the organization. Say, for example, we have witnessed tall structures, bureaucratic structures to flat structures, participative structures. We talked of matrix structure where multiple relationship system was there. But does that kind of organizations cope with the scenarios that we do have at the present time? May be difficult. So that is the reason why we do come out with many such different newer versions of the organizational structure. Newer versions in a sense, we do talk of pyramidal organizations, inverted pyramidal organizations, dome-shaped organizations. More or less, nowadays we do talk of virtual organizations, right? Many such different kind of organizational structures are available. So we cannot think of the organizations in a traditional or an orthodox way anymore. We have to consider those kind of structure which can really help the organization to cope with the demand at the present time. We're talking of modifying the processes. Why do we talk of re-engineering? Why do we talk of modifying the existing systems? Somehow or other we need to understand that because of certain lacuna, because of certain problems in the existing systems, the system needs to be modified. To talk of simple interventions in a sense may be required at a particular department, may be required at a particular process where certain modifications are required to make the process effective. So whenever we talk of the effective implementation of HRD system, these are the 5 such important aspects that needs to be focused on in the organization. So here my friends, you can see, I was telling you that this human resource development system is actually a cobweb structure, where if I to talk of the system as a whole, I may divide it in terms of planning and administration. This is a subsystem, job salary subsystem, HRD subsystem, work affairs subsystem. So here you can see each and every aspect is related to one another, and all the 3 other dimensions, all the 3 other subsystems, planning, administration, job salary, work affairs, they are related to system development and research. Here I need to focus on developing the entire system. The focus should be on development of the system. Here you can see that planning and administrative system. Information storage is linked with manpower planning, is linked with recruitment. Recruitment is linked with information storage and placements. Placements are the outcomes of job analysis. Manpower planning is the outcome of job analysis. Job analysis will lead to potential appraisals, will lead to recruitment, will lead to salary administration. Right? Maybe whenever we talk of industrial relationship system, work affairs, workers' participation is related with training, workers' participation is related to IR is related to welfare, organizational redesign is related to OD. So each and every aspect of the organization here to see, they are somehow interlinked with one another. That is the reason why we say that organizational aspects are like cobweb structures, where structuring the system requires a synchronized effort. Each and every aspect of the organization, each and every subsystem of the organization must be synchronized to develop, to define the HRD system. So it's not that easy. It's a very complex process. It's a very, I'll not say that impossible, but it's a very cumbersome process where you need to have all those efforts related with one another to define the entire HRD system. That's what we need to talk of, right? So how to come out with the basic aspects of the human resource system. That is what we need to take into consideration. So here are, we say that the 10 commandments of the HRD system. Of course, we have understood that unless and until the systems and the subsystems are synchronized, the effectiveness of HRD practices will not be there. So whenever we do talk of implementing these HRD systems, here we do come out with the basic commandments that we need to take into consideration. It begins with the competences of the employees, as we have already discussed it. Competences can be like anything. Competences can be technical, can be process oriented, can be individuals, performance based competencies, right? So managerial competencies, we talk of leadership competencies, judgmental competencies, can be anything. So what I need to understand is that the first thing that I need to develop is the competencies among the people. If I can really enhance the competencies, I can think of enhancing the effectiveness, right? So that is what to be taken into consideration as a whole. The second dimension is that we can think of counseling. Why? Because the reason that I told you, there can be hundreds of such reasons for which can be responsible for the non-performance of a particular candidate in the organization. But problem is that out of those 100 reasons, there may be many such reasons which are related to the organizational level of factors. But most of the reasons can be related to the individuals itself. So what is required is to understand the cause of the problem itself. What is the reason for the non-performance? So organizations nowadays, they do take professional counselors, hire professional counselors for that, or they do develop their own internal resources who do mastery in counseling, right? So that is how you need to take into consideration. Right? We do talk of coaching. This has been given importance. Coaching or mentoring or guiding. Because whenever we do talk of the career growth options, like the fourth point, it is the career development options. So we can think of preparing a second line of HR managers. Okay? The concept says, if the employees of the organization will be assigned with some of the senior members of the organization who can treat those employees as their interns, we can say, for higher level positions. Interns for higher level positions. That's what you need to understand, right? So mostly like being a mentor, I do take care of my word, right? So similarly, being like whoever may be assigned to the senior level executives, they're the people who do have the responsibility of grooming them for taking of higher level positions. So essence of coaching counseling is there, what we'll discuss in detail later on, right? We have talked of this career development aspects, right? But mostly nowadays, whenever we talk of this HRD systems, we say that people do play the role of a change agent. Why do the people do play the role of a change agent? Because nothing is certain. We are living in a VUCA world, right? Volatile, uncertain world, right? So anything can happen to the organization. Any kind of change can be there in the organization. May it be technical related, may it be process related, may it be structure related, may it be work related, may it be people related, whatever it may be. But you need to understand that this change is a very hectic aspect of the organization, and most of the time people do hate these changes. They don't want to accommodate themselves, right? So what is required over here? A unique approach whereby all the members of the organization, employees of the organization, they can really foster their career in terms of adapting to those kind of changes. So they need to define themselves as the change agents. It should begin from the bottom. So do they have that mindset to accept that change? If not, organizations cannot achieve it. So what is required is to make them understand, make them to understand their own roles and responsibilities in the organization. What is required, what is not, why this change is essential, what are the things that the organization is going to suffer if the said change is not adopted. So making an assessment of that and gearing up for the entire change process is what that is required. We're talking of a uniform policy, plans, rules, regulations, which will make the employees, to abide by these rules in a uniform way. So code of conduct is essential. Let each and every individual employee of the organization understand what is being expected out of them, how they should behave, what should they do, what should they avoid. All of those things that we define. Say for example, like with an increasing challenge of diversity nowadays, there are also increasing challenges in terms of sexual harassment cases at the place of work. How to develop that? How to develop a system to manage that? We need to talk of increasing abuses of drugs, alcohols at the place of work. How do I develop a system to make the employees overcome all of those problems? So some or other we need to talk of certain code of conduct which is based on certain ethical principles and values. That has to be taken into consideration. We talk of culture building, we have understood that. As a system, I need to have that competitive advantages also. Competitive advantages in essence, I need to win over other organizations and survive. If I don't compete with other organizations and win over that competition, it may so happen that I'll lose my existence from the universe. Right? What I don't want. So either you compete, win over the competition, or you perish simply. Nowadays the organizations are guided by these principles only. Right? So anyhow, I need to have that competitive advantage over other organizations, which can be possible only by the human resources in the organization. Right? You're talking of developing collaboration among the employees. So the focus has been shifted from individuals to the teams of the organization. And finally, we do talk of the communication. Communication is one of the most important dimensions of this 10 commandments we do talk of, right? So unless and until there will be proper communication among the supervisors and the subordinates, or from the top to bottom of the organization, managing these resources will be really a difficult affair for us, right? So these are the things that we need to consider before we make an application of this HRD system in the organization itself. Right? And whenever we talk of this systems itself, we say that 6 such important aspects are there. Like we do talk of the development of individual potentials, employee talents. Individuals should be developed in their roles. We need to promote the culture of teams, inter-teams, organizations, right? So here we do come out with the 6 such areas where we need to focus on, right? Individual potential, talents, roles, teams, inter-teams, organizations. These are the things. These are the 6 such areas. And what are the ways by which we can think of that? Like individual potential, we do have performance management system. Talents, we do have work systems, career systems, roles, like self-renewal system, all of those things we do talk of, right? So HRD systems do take these 7 aspects into consideration. One is performance management system, work plan system, career system, self-renewal system, reinforcement system, and then system development we do talk of, right? And the culture system. These are the areas where you need to take that aspect of HRD into consideration, right? So let us talk of this individual systems of the organization, where first system is performance management system. Now the performance management is completely different from that of the appraisal. It doesn't merely focus only on the evaluation dimensions of the organization, but it focuses on the developmental dimensions of the individuals. As if we do understand the change. Earlier, we used to have these appraisals to take personal decisions, like who is going to have the increment, who is going to get the promotion, who is going to be deputed to some other projects, whose salary is not going to be increased, who is not going to get that promotion, maybe in terms of certain punitive action, who is going to get a demotion. All of those aspects were there only in appraisals. But nowadays, we do talk of this performance management system whose basic aspect is to develop a strategy to link individuals to the organization's goals. A strategy has to be developed. Right? So that is the reason why organizational goals are decentralized to the individual level of goals. Not like earlier days where the supervisor used to set the goals of the individuals. Nowadays, this goal setting is given utmost priority as a process, and these goals are set mutually in presence of the subordinate and the higher authority. Okay? So what is required is that a strategy to link performance management system with the organizational productivity. You're talking of the basic administration of that. Question comes, answering all the 5 W's and H. Who is going to do the appraisal? What are the factors on the basis of which these appraisals are to be taken into consideration? When it should be, like whenever we do talk of when it should be done. So shall I do it on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, on 6 months basis, or per annum basis? Right? When it comes to who, you may have come across with the term 90-degree appraisal, 180-degree appraisals, 360-degree appraisals, like that only. When there will be only one evaluator, right? Evaluation is done by self or the reporting officers. It's called as 90-degree. When there will be 2 such evaluators, self and the reporting authority, it can be called as 180. 360-degree is a holistic approach of the evaluations being done by all the stakeholders of the organization. So the administration is most important aspect of that. How do I synchronize among all of those things, right? Communication development, of course, we have understood that organizational maintenance is, what that is required, which can be driven from this performance management system. So in case the productivity of the employees are going down, so some or other I need to focus on the system so that, the system can take the people back into that track. We're talking of aligning the organization's objectives with the culture, and accountability and recognition is what that is required, right? Work plan system is other subsystem of the organization where we say that this role analysis and efficiency is being focused on, right? So understanding and assigning proper role to the individuals is what is required. Right? We're talking of a proper performance plan, which requires a systematic approach of evaluating the performances, creating a report out of that, identifying the training needs, identifying the need for counseling. All of those things are to be taken into consideration, right? Performance feedback and guidance is important, not like earlier days where we used to have, CCR kind of performance appraisal systems, confidential character role, where the evaluation of the individual members were done, but the report was not shown to them. Nowadays, we need to have open system. Discuss the appraisals with the workers. Discuss the appraisals with the workers. So, you do have counseling sessions. You do have, you know, feedback sessions of the individuals. Let the individual know where he stands, what are the loopholes he is having, what are the advantages of him, in what way he can really boost his career. All of those things can be there, right? We're talking about promotions, job rotations, rewards. All of these aspects are related to the work plan system. By default, it should be you need to carry out a particular policy by which everything will be synchronized, everything will be followed in a systematic way, right? So that is what is required at the present time. We're talking of the basic aspects of the career systems. Career systems, it says manpower planning, procurement, right? Career planning, retention planning, succession planning process. Now the step begins with manpower planning itself. The challenge is that I shouldn't have over manpower or under manpower. Both the things are not suitable for the organizations, not good for the organizations, right? So what is required is to have the right kind of manpower, the right number of manpower to be ready to serve the organization as and when it is required. And of course, I shouldn't say that people should have right skill, knowledge, and abilities, right? So manpower planning is one of the most important aspects which what actually makes an assessment of the desired level of human resources at the present time or maybe in future time, right? What we do have, what is required, finding out the gap, then bridge the gap. That is what is a simple step of this manpower planning process. Procurement is like that also, right? So proper match, role profiling should be there in the procurement process. Career planning, succession planning we have discussed, right? And retentions we have also discussed that in detail, right? Then when we talk of this developmental system, it begins with the induction and onboarding processes. Now most of the organizations do undermine this. Most of the organizations do undermine the importance of this onboarding processes. But actually, these onboarding processes, do have three things taken together. Say the induction, the orientation, and the socialization. Okay? Induction is all about inducting that particular individual to the system, right? So individuals are to be inducted to the system. Like, the basic process of induction is that they are provided with the basic information related to the organization. So what are the facts and figures that they should know about the organization is what they induce among the employees, right? We do talk of the basic rules and regulations of the respective departments, work timings, shift timings, holidays, working hours, health aspects, safety measures. All of these are to be inducted to the individual employees. But when it comes to orientation, we say it's all about the job related aspects. It's all about the job things, right? So those orientation processes should be carried out by the respective heads of the departments, or they are nominated supervisors, nominated people who can really induce them to the system. The concept is that it should uh, overcome the natural shyness of the individual, and the individual should be ready to serve the industry, serve the organization, right? We're talking of potential appraisals. As we discussed it in our previous class, it is not about what a person is doing, how efficiently the person is doing his job. It's all about what a person can do, his efficacy at the place of it, right? So potential appraisal method is a method which enhances or evaluates the person's ability to do the jobs, right? Counseling, mentoring system discussed, so like succession development. Here, the role of the leader is very important, right? Like as we discussed that there has to be a proper succession planning process, right? To find out the successions, to develop that second line of managers, right? So here, as a leader, what I need to do is to promote those individual members to take up more and more responsible positions. So their growth aspects, developmental aspects is one of the most important things. No? Right? Similarly, we talk of job enrichments, enlargement. Job enrichment is addition of value to the job. Right? Job enlargement is addition of duties and responsibilities. So, along with your existing duties and responsibilities, all those additional things that is given is a part of enlargement. So, parallel workload. But enrichment is whatever you do at the present role, whatever you do at the present time, that should add more value to the system. We call that as job enrichment, right? Self-learning mechanisms are a part of the development system that we need to take into consideration. Other systems are like the reinforcement systems, where we are talking of this motivation, rewards, and recognitions. Here, we need to understand one thing, that as we discussed it, motivation is something which is driven from the inner potentials of the individual employee. So no external factors can really motivate the employees. External factors can only inspire the employee to do certain things. But doing that particular thing is a complete choice of the individual. So we say that motivation is all about individual's efforts driven from himself, right? We have observed that the traditional aspects of motivation somehow rather focuses on fulfillment of the bare essentials, right? But question comes, do the people live by bread and butter only? No. So that is the reason why focus should be on the rewards, recognitions, right? Which can really make the people to comply with their day-to-day requirements and the satisfaction of higher order needs altogether. So a proper reinforcement system should be there to take care of all those things, right? We are talking of self-renewal mechanism. That's what we are talking about now. Like the survey methods you need to take into consideration, the action research methods to find out the gap, actually what we do have and what is required in future is to be taken into consideration, right? So identifying the gap and coming out with subsequent developmental interventions are a part of the system. We're talking of organizations retreat, like how the organization can really re-innovate itself to take up the challenges. Those are the things that we need to take into consideration. And towards the end, the most important aspect is the culture system, where the vision, mission, goals of the organizations are to be synchronized and are to be in line with the resources available for the organization. We're talking of the values. We're talking of enhancing the communication level among the managers, starting from top to bottom, right? So these are the things, these are the systems that we need to take into consideration for the implementation of HRD in a proper way in the organization. Right? So, friends, we have understood the various systems and what it is required to implement all of those systems is what we are going to discuss in the next class. So, thank you very much and have a good day. Thank you.